Welcome to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast. I am Dan.
And I'm Eric.
Hi, Eric.
That almost sounded like professional, right?
Yeah, almost a little bit.
And I'm Eric.
We're getting there. I don't know why I'm trying to mimic an audience. Hi, Eric. Like that sort of thing. But I guess that's what's happening. This week, man, we got a pretty gnarly snowstorm going on right now here in the Iowa region. Are you guys getting hit pretty hard in Iowa City right now?
Yeah, we got sent home from school early today, and we're fully online tomorrow. So, yeah, it's pretty serious.
Do you get the same sense of excitement getting sent home from school as an adult that you did when you were a kid?
I was pretty excited. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
it was like
probably not as excited, to be honest. But I think that has to do with sort of like the pandemic anyway. Like, I don't know. I like my home and my life and stuff like that. But
right.
I'm also a little bored with it all. So going back home is kind of like, all right, well, back home. You know what I mean? It's like, you get like reabsorbed.
Here we go again.
Right. So, yeah, I think if it were a regular kind of hustle and bustle, normal life kind of day, I would have been really stoked to have an extra half day to screw around or whatever. So,
sure.
Yeah, but I'll take it. Any day of the week, I'll take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It brings, anytime I like look out the window and I see like a day weather-wise like this, it just brings me back to when I was like in 6th grade, and if I heard there was going to be a snowstorm, I would wake up. I would set my alarm. That was like the only time I'd get up early, like on purpose. that and Christmas. And
right.
I would set my alarm just so I could go look at the snow at 5 a.m. And then I would turn on the TV and just wait, oh, is it gonna be canceled? Is it gonna be canceled? And I'd watch all my cartoons and everything.
Wait for your count for you to scroll across the crawler.
Yeah,
and it'd be like Wapello County. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, is it me, or did it seem like Muscatine was always like the last one that got called?
I mean, it seemed that way, but it's probably because we were waiting for it.
Yeah, that could be. I mean,
we didn't care too much if a Wilton scrolled across the screen. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh man, crazy snow days.
Yeah.
So yeah, today we got an action-packed podcast, just like all the other ones, which you guys should all go back and listen to if you haven't already. All at once. In fact, at the same time.
Yeah.
Find like 10 different computers or devices to play like all 10 of them at once, and it will unlock something.
I thought we were gonna let people discover that it's an Easter egg.
Yeah,
if you listen to them all at once, we actually re-recorded that Bad Religion Prague album we always talk about.
Yeah. We used our voices. It's this like new technology. It's like nanotechnology, and we're actually like guinea pigs for like this new thing. So
Prague guinea pigs.
Prague guinea pigs, re-recording the Bad Religion album. We're not getting paid for it or anything. We're just doing it.
Yeah.
It's our passion. We really love doing that kind of thing. Re-recording Prague albums, lost Prague albums from punk bands.
Yep, and you have to listen to 10 podcasts at a time.
Dude, you know what we should do? We should review that album sometime.
Do a what?
We should review, since we re-recorded it with nanotechnology anyway. We should review it.
Okay,
Like,
I'm into it.
We should do that sometime. Yeah. I think we're gonna do that.
Ever since you brought it, check it out.
What was
All
that,
right.
Eric? I think I
Sounds
lost
good.
you.
Oh, I said that sounds good.
Oh, okay. Cool, cool. I think I lost you there for a second. I'm sure that Mother Nature's not
Uh,
being too kind to the internet connection out here.
I
Uh,
probably lost myself. Anyway.
you got too excited about announcing that Bad Religion album that we recorded. Um,
I did.
so moving on, we got some more albums to talk about that we were into last week, and then we got a really special review coming up of
Yeah.
Mr. Cory Peak's latest instrumental sample-based hip-hop beat album. He's been doing those things for actually quite a while now. He's got several albums if you go to the peaks.bandcamp.com, and you can also go to the Sass Baloney website. That's his record label. He's been putting out tapes. For those of you who don't know who Cory is, get to know him. He's a really cool guy. But he is the guitar player, or not guitar player, excuse me, the bass player for Closet Witch currently. As well as just several other musical projects that he always seems to have a hand in. And he's also a sick graphic designer and a sick artist. He actually is the one who did our new logo, the new logo that features both mine and Eric's faces. That you
I like that we're still acting like we're two different people.
Oh, I forgot. We are the man. We're like revealing all kinds of secrets on this one, man. Like,
Yeah.
ladies
Yeah,
and
we
gentlemen.
totally look different. If you see that picture, like one person has hair and one has a beard.
and I think I see a mouth and eyes on both of us.
Right.
And
Yeah.
maybe even a nose. I mean, I think I saw something like that.
But no, we're the same person.
Yeah.
It's very conceptual, this podcast.
There you go. We got access to nanotechnology that re-records punk prog classics, and we're also the same person. So
Yeah.
we're actually going to change this the name of this podcast to Accelerativ Thrust with Derek. So
I was
that's
thinking the same thing.
that's
Yeah.
coming in the
Derek.
future, Derek. Everybody's like, well, who's Derek?
Oh boy.
All right, so we got some
But
albums.
shit, I hope people think we're as funny as we think we are, because
They
if they don't, they're gonna hate us.
and they will pay. But anyway, we got some albums to talk about. Holy shit.
First or me?
I don't remember who went first last time. It doesn't really. Maybe we should both. Why don't we do an experiment? Since this is already getting kind of whack, why don't we both just talk about it at the same time? Like, you talk about yours and I talk about mine both at the same time. You want to just do that? We'll get through the 3 releases quicker that way.
I'll go first. I think if I remember right, you went first last time. So.
Did I? Okay. No, that's fine. All right. Batter up.
So, I will start with the least interesting of my choices, and I don't mean that in a bad way. So hear me out. This album is by a group called Dead. It's D.i.y. The record's called Flowers of Devotion. It came out last year. And anyone who has listened to this and has listened to the records that we've talked about, you probably are starting to think that all I listen to is insane bullshit that, like, has no melody and no structure and is always just weird for weird's sake and stuff like that.
But the truth is, we both do.
Right. That is true, but also so are Dan. No. I think when you listen to this, you might think, wow, this is really freaking normal at times. And it is. And that's okay. You know, like, sometimes you have to find something that doesn't seem as weird to really dig in and find the weirdness. You know, it's not as obvious sometimes. And that's not to say that this record's super dense and deep and the production's insane. No, this is pretty straightforward music. I would say that it's a little bit like the Chromatics, a little bit like Jesus and Mary Chain. I think that to me it reminds me a lot of early college rock, like stuff that butted up against goth but isn't quite. So like Echo and the Bunnymen and the Church and things like that. Maybe even a little New Order at times, a little bit. It's jangly and cold. It's upbeat though. It's atmospheric, but it's upbeat somehow. I think it's pretty fun. The guitar tones are really sick. They just really understand how to get that lush, washy, almost shoegaze tone. A lot of tremolo, a lot of reverb. Vocally, one of the singers I think sounds a lot like Exene Cervenka from X, which I'm not really that big of a fan of that singing style. And I'm going to diverge for just a second and talk about what I call black velvet vocals. It's a kind of singing that I associate with the song Black Velvet, if you remember that song by Alana Miles.
Oh, yeah. The Black Velvet and that little boy's smile. That one?
Yeah. Like, so it has this kind of lift at the end of the phrasing, and it's like what people think cool singing sounds like, you know? Like, Black Velvet, if you please. Like that kind of crap.
Yeah, by the way, that sounded great, Eric. Like, no, seriously, you sang that one line very well. That was awesome.
I've been practicing. No, so it does kind of have a little bit of that to it. The only person I ever give an excuse to is Lou Reed. And that's because I don't think he can help it. I think he just kind of has a bad voice. But so with that caveat, the vocals, I can't get behind all of them all the time. They really they're cheesy at times, but I think it's worth it to give it a shot and to listen to it because the songs are cool, and the production's really fun. And sometimes you got to give your brain and your ears a break from all the insane stuff and just hear some music. And I think this is a pretty good example of that. So,
sure.
Yeah. Dead.
I actually did not know that that it was pronounced dead. I think that's clever. I just called it DEHD and I thought it was an acronym for something. But anyway,
it's a designer drug.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not really much more I can add to everything that you just said. I totally agree with it. I enjoyed it from beginning to end. I think the songwriting is great. The guitar tone is sick, like you said. It reminded me a lot of, well, like you said, the sort of, I guess, atmospheric pop, like alternative pop, like Echo and the Bunnymen, and yeah, I definitely hear like Cocteau Twins in it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I also, parts of it reminded me too of like Beat Happening, you know, because it had that really like indie sort of almost twee pop at times.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Sort of thing. Yep. And so, yeah, it was just a really enjoyable beginning to end. Like, I could imagine a lot of songs on this album being the soundtrack to some indie movie about teenagers getting high in the sun.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it really is, it really has that sort of, and a lot of the guitar tones reminded me of like surf rock too, kind of.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Like dark.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was that any of these songs could fit on the Donnie Darko soundtrack.
Yeah,
pretty well.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly, or even like the Juno soundtrack or something. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it totally. It was an enjoyable listen. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that, if I was 10, maybe 15 years younger than I am now, and hadn't been exposed to all the different types of music that I've been exposed to now, I mean, I totally would have eaten this up like, this probably would have been like one of my favorite albums, like in 2004. Sure. And it's still really good. It's fantastic. If you're a fan of like, Echo and the Bunnymen, Beat Happening, I know that those are two bands that don't necessarily go together all the time, but it's like almost like dark gothic twee pop or something.
Yeah,
like
I would agree with that
in a weird sort of way. And there's also hints of like garage rock. Absolutely fantastic stuff.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually go the opposite route, and I'm going to talk about the to me the most interesting of my three picks. To start off, and that is an album from this group called the Deviants, and the name of the album is Patouf. I think that's how you're going to pronounce it. I first heard of this by watching an episode of Amoeba What's in My Bag, and they were talking to Ty Segall about what he had in his bag while shopping at Amoeba Music in Hollywood. And he pulled this record out towards the end of the segment and said that this is the find of the day. He had been looking for this record for years. Because at the time, a lot of the albums that he was finding in that segment, I guess, were very rare and expensive and hadn't really been reissued. And then there was this period of time, which I'm going to say it was probably circa 2010-ish, 2009-ish, somewhere around there. A bunch of these records, like this Deviants record, started to get reissued. At least that's what he said in the video. I don't know how long this record has been reissued, or even if it's reissued at all, that might not have been. He might have been talking about something else that he got in his bag. I don't really remember. But nonetheless, that's the first time I heard of this record, and they always play clips, like 5-second clips. And the first thing that caught my eye about it was the cover, because 60s garage rock psychedelic covers are always awesome, even if the music's bad. I always enjoy the art from that period of time, like pop art, kind of. So I decided to give it a listen, and this is actually, I'm kind of sort of cheating in a way, or maybe kind of this is well, I guess no, it wouldn't be cheating, because that's exactly what this segment is about, actually, I guess. I just heard this record, unlike all the other records that I've talked about on this podcast so far. I just literally heard this for the first time like 2 days ago.
Nice.
And so I don't know why I would think that that's inappropriate for this at all, because that's exactly, I guess, like what I did do that's differently is I planned to listen to this and put it on my list, as opposed to like, this is a record I've been into. The other two I've known about for years, which I'll get to. But anyway, this record to me is just a really fun, interesting 60s garage rock, psychedelic rock record. Parts of it remind me of something like the 13th Floor Elevators, just that kind of stuff. Parts of it remind me a little bit of Zappa. Definitely a lot of Captain Beefheart going on in there. A lot of sense of humor. Definitely a lot of the sort of politics of that time kind of thrown in. And there's parts of the album that are definitely, specifically, you can tell that it was recorded in the era that it was. I think this record came out in 1967. Because there's actually some language that's used that you couldn't really, I don't think you could necessarily get by with today. Or maybe you could, depending on the delivery. We kind of touched on that before. Yeah. But it was definitely a record made in the 60s, and you can definitely tell. But I really, really enjoyed it. I really thought the last track was really cool. Very interesting. It's a 9-minute track that kind of goes between like these sort of, I don't know, spoken word interludes and then like sort of the experimental music passages, I guess you could call it. Has almost like a sort of a beatnik vibe to it sometimes. I also really like the song Child of the Sky. Very cool acoustic number. But yeah, overall, if you're a fan of this kind of just sort of weird 60s psychedelic pop, that's what I would, this would definitely be one of my recommendations.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. I'm surprised I haven't heard it before, because I used to be pretty into psych stuff, and somehow I missed this. But like you said, I think there's some obviously like, but they're like contemporaries. That's kind of the thing that's interesting about this to me, is like I don't necessarily feel like they heard the 13th floor elevators and were like, okay, let's start a band. Maybe I'm completely off, but it seems kind of fully formed in 1967.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, and you can still hear it getting there a little bit. Like some songs wouldn't be that out of place on a Them featuring Van Morrison record or whatever.
Sure.
But it is really weird. It's it also reminded me of aspects of the Pink Floyd from that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Especially
especially like what's that first like Saucer Full of Secrets, and then
right.
What's the first one? The first Pink Floyd record. I can't think of the name right now.
It is
drawing a blank. And it's one.
What the heck was that?
And
called?
that's like my favorite Pink Floyd record too. Oh man,
Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Yeah, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Why could I don't know why I couldn't remember that. That's
that's kind of what it reminded me of. That record specifically, and Saucer Full of Secrets to an extent. But yeah, and also like you said, a lot like the Mothers, a lot like the Residents in places too.
Oh
like,
yeah, definitely.
It does go there. It gets real weird, and it's not completely novel. Like I might as well just get this out of the way and say it. I'm not a huge Mothers of Invention fan. I think it's a little too funny for me. Like,
really?
it's a little too clever. Yeah, it's a little too clever. Like it's always sort of goofy.
Wow.
And I need a little bit of real darkness in my music. And I know people will disagree with me hard about this, but I just don't get a sense of like real like pain or loss or suffering, and not that you need that all the time, but I like music to have an element of that, and I never really get that from Zappa. So, but with Beefheart, I love it, and I think conceptually they're similar. So, I think that's okay. But I don't think that this is like that in that sense. I don't think it's novel. I don't think it's clever or funny necessarily. I think it's weird. And, but yeah, there's some darkness in here, and I really like it, especially with some of the social commentary that they're making. I think it's really cool, And, so, I feel like I offended you with my Mother's.
No, not at all. I can totally understand how one could feel that way about the Mothers of Invention, because it took me a while to really get it, and I'm not a fan of everything that Zappa's done either. Yeah. But to your point about the Residents, an interesting thing too is that in that same episode of with Ty Segall, the first thing that he pulled out of his bag was a Snake Finger single.
Oh yeah.
So so he's clearly versed on that sort of thing. So yeah, that's really cool. I didn't even think to compare them to the Residents, especially like stuff like Third Reich and Roll.
Right, for sure.
I definitely
And I think
hear
that's
a
the
lot
thing
of that.
about the Residents too, is it's like it's hard to compare them with anyone because
Absolutely.
they're so singular in what they do that it feels like no one else does anything like this, and they don't do anything like anyone else. But in reality, especially on like Meet the Residents, we're not that far off, you know, of
Right.
those fuzzy guitars and the movement of things. Like I think that first record especially is still sort of rooted in like a primitive rock and roll garage kind of feel at times.
Oh,
So,
sure, sure,
you know, yeah.
sure, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm glad that you enjoyed this
Yeah, it
album.
was awesome. I'm gonna go back to that often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here. I'm probably gonna revisit it quite a few times. Thank you, Ty Seagull, because I know you're not listening to this podcast, for getting me into the Deviants. Um, all right, okay, you're up next.
Cool. So my second thing I got into this week is it's a guy. He's called Exhuma, Exhuma. The record is called Exhuma, the Obeah Man. It came out in 1970. This I don't even know how. I mean, I think I saw the cover and I was like, well, I need to listen to that. Like, I have no idea how this fell into my lap. Um, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's this guy Exuma. He's born in the Bahamas. Um, Apparently, he never planned on being a musician. He just sort of fell into it. And all those, I don't know how you say it correctly, Bahamian rhythms are there in this music. I would say this to me is sort of similar to like Fela Kuti in sort of how the rhythms work at times, mixed with Screamin' Jay Hawkins. Uh, Especially like there's kind of like a voodoo element to the whole thing. I think it's actually called Obeah in Exuma's culture, but it's the same as like Santeria or voodoo. It's sort of like a sort of that same kind of thing. And so he brings that element into it. Vocally, I think he sounds a lot like Toots Hibbert from Toots and the Maytals. That really almost a raspy, yelly sound. Um, and so the thing about it is, though, what I just described sounds sort of like a really interesting world music record. That's not what's happening here. This feels to me more like uh, Moondog. Like it's like goofy, not necessarily funny, but goofy and kind of funky. And I think there's elements of the time period of the 1970s soul working its way in there too. So it's pretty well rounded, but at the same time, there's moments where you're like, what the hell is going on? This is so goofy. And uh, yeah, so, but I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was really cool. I think this is the only record he put out, or maybe he put out two, but not very many. Um, so yeah, kind of like for fans of Fela Kuti, if you ever wanted it mixed with Screamin' Jay Hawkins, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting listen. Now I'm largely unfamiliar with Fela Kuti. Am I saying that right? Fela Kuti.
Yeah, I think Fela Kuti. I don't know. That's how I've heard it
Yeah,
said.
I'm largely unfamiliar, but I've heard the name, and I know that from what I understand, it seems like a lot of people that are into experimental music are into him. Is it a guy or is it a group?
It is a guy, and he basically it's kind of like long form rhythmic guitar. Um, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's very drum oriented. Um, yeah, it's like Afro-Cuban in a way. Um, yeah, he's from Nigeria, and he is considered almost like a religious leader there, apparently.
Hmm.
I don't know everything about him. I have friends like my friend Brad, um, from Low Voltage. He is, I think, obsessed with Fela Kuti, and he can tell you all about it. But um, for me, I just listened to it. Zombie's my favorite record by him. But yeah, it's like long form. It's like 9 minute long, kind of groovy Afro-Cuban stuff, which I'm usually not into. But he brings something to it that I can't really explain, I guess. But I would suggest everyone check him out. It's really cool music, and uh, I think people listen to it with the idea that it's sort of strange, but I don't find it strange. I find it just sort of rhythmic, like it's just falling into itself a little bit. So anyway, I think you'd have to listen to it to appreciate what I'm trying to explain. So
Uh, yeah,
yeah.
that everything that you just kind of described there. I mean, that's kind of how I would describe this record. Like, I definitely
Mhm.
hear like almost like a, and maybe this is just kind of my ignorance showing about the whole, African Cuban. I guess the way that I would describe it is almost like tribal music. I
Mhm.
guess that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. I mean that's what this sounded like to me, with maybe touches of like experimentation going on there. But I mean, this record, it looks like it was put out in 1970, so it
Right. Yeah.
predates a lot of stuff, and I could hear how it would be a big influence on something like maybe something like Ganja Sufi or something like that. Like it almost you just sort of the
Yeah.
the free form ness of it all. Like it was, it's one of those releases that I think I'll probably have to give. I only listened to it once all the way through, and it was last week, and I enjoyed it
Yeah.
when I was listening to it, but I still probably have to give it more time to completely digest it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's something that I'm gonna have to listen to a few times, I think, before maybe I'll get it. You know,
Mm.
but I do enjoy it though. I did enjoy it.
Well,
It was a lot of fun. Like, it may sound strange for me to say that it was fun to listen to, but to me it was pretty fun to listen to and kind of
yeah. I think it's fun.
get
Yeah.
familiar with it. Yeah, very very good, interesting pick for sure. I'm
Cool.
actually very interested in checking out Fela Kuti now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm
Yeah.
always going to feel like I'm saying that wrong. um,
Yeah, I don't know. I just say it cootie like you have cooties,
yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly. Maybe that's the
yeah.
reason, because that's actually the picture I had in my mind when I was saying it, and maybe that's the reason why I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Like it's
Well, I'm
inappropriate or
sure I'm
something.
saying it wrong. Everyone listening right now, like, it's cootie, you asshole.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Find out that it's something that's just not even like what it looks like at all. Like it's
Yeah,
Fea Kauai, or something like
yeah,
that. I mean, who knows?
probably.
But anyway, so that brings me to my second pick. Which one am I going to talk about? I think I'll do this one first. This is a record that I've actually been familiar with this record for years now. I mean, back in the probably as early as maybe the late 90s. But I'm going to say maybe it's more 2001ish, that sort of
Hmm.
era. But this is a record by a group called the Appleseed Cast, and the name of the record is Mare Vitalis. And this is their second album. I got into them because there was a band called Planes Mistaken for Stars that I used to be really into in my younger
Hmm.
days, and I still like them. But I this was back in the days where this was pre-internet. So what I did was I looked at the record label that Planes Mistaken for Stars was on, and because they played in Muscatine a couple of times. And so
Hmm.
I got on the internet and I ordered a bunch of Planes Mistaken for Stars stuff. and the label was Deep Elm Records, which was kind of a Midwestern emo label at the time. Well, I mean, I'm sure they still are. I think they still exist. But anyway, I ordered the two Planes Mistaken for Stars albums that were out at the time, and they sent me a sampler that had every band on it, and the Appleseed cast was one of them. And I really liked the song from the Appleseed cast that was on this compilation. And then I saw this CD somewhere. I'm going to say it was either Best Buy or Record Collector, and I bought it. But this was their second CD. The song off of that compilation was off the first CD. And I listened to this, and instantly I fell in love with it at that time. And this is kind of a revisitation, because I since got rid of a bunch of my CDs, and this was one of them. And I probably got rid of thousands of CDs over the years, like literally, I would suspect. But this was one of them that was in a load of CDs that I got rid of, and so I just decided to revisit this. I don't know what triggered me to go back and revisit it. I think I saw something about how they played in Iowa City not that long ago. And so it just kind of brought back the memories, and I was like, I really like this record. And I come to find out they're still an active band. They just put out a new record a few years back, maybe only like last year or something like that. But they actually put out several albums after this too, which I haven't gotten to yet. But anyway, it's a very just sort of, I think, a gorgeous, atmospheric sort of emo indie rock album. Parts of it kind of remind me of Sunny Day Real Estate, with the music of like something like Explosions in the Sky, with Perry Farrell on vocals. It kind of has that sort of feel to it, and it seems to me like it's a concept record, maybe. I haven't really investigated that part of it, but I just kind of get that feeling with some of the song titles and themes. But the first four songs in particular on this record, The Immortal Soul of Mundu, Fishing the Sky, Forever Longing the Golden Something, which I'm reading I'm reading this off of Google right now, and so it's cutting off like the full titles. Hold on a second. I'm gonna bring this up real quick on Spotify, and okay, these are the full titles. The Immortal this one's cutting it off too. The Immortal Soul of Mundu Kani, Fishing the Sky, Forever Longing the Golden Sunsets, which is probably my favorite track off the entire record, and then a really cool instrumental called Mare Mortis. So yeah, this was my second pick. I really like it. If you're a fan of all those bands I just mentioned, Sunny Day Real Estate, that sort of late 90s Midwestern nerd emo rock, but then also you like the atmospheric stuff of like Explosions in the Sky, and even to a certain extent Godspeed You Black Emperor, and then like 90s alternative vocals kind of at times, but it's still definitely an emo record for sure. I think you'd like it. What are your thoughts, Eric?
Well, I've never listened to these guys before, and I've heard a lot about them. Not a lot about them. I've heard a lot of people mention them.
Sure.
And I really enjoyed it. I have to say that as far as things not being in my wheelhouse, this is probably one of the genres that I have very limited understanding of.
Sure.
And so my comparisons when I was listening were like Far.
Oh yeah, that's
The Promise Ring.
Yeah.
Quicksand.
Yep.
But then also like Dinosaur Jr. and Modest Mouse a little bit too.
Yep.
And yeah, but like I said, like I literally just named all the bands that I've ever listened to that sound like this. So, you know, I really enjoyed it though, and it felt different. It's not that I stayed away from that music for any specific reason other than just at the time I was into different things.
Sure.
And then later it seemed hard to get into that style of music. You know, it's like it felt like a hard genre to just drop into. Sort
well,
of.
emo to me is it is difficult to get into when you're older because I think that the stuff that was, you know, considered emo or that was popular under the emo genre, like when we were growing up, you know, in the 90s, for instance, Eric, was a lot different than what, like, the bands that kind of came after them. And so emo kind of got into, you know, it kind of is it's one of those things where I think, like, you kind of had to be into it during its time, you know?
Right.
Like, to really fully, like, understand it, I guess. Like, yeah, it's really...
Or to get it.
Yeah, to get it. It's really like a... you know, like it's an album kind of its time, which is, you know, early 2000s. It was before, like, Thursday and Taking Back Sunday. It was, like, right before the big sort of emo boom, if you will, where, you know, that became the next new metal or grunge or whatever, you know? And
for sure.
It's, yeah, I think that it's, like, that this kind of stuff is really, like, it's difficult to introduce it to somebody who didn't really, because records like this really make you feel something when you're younger, and or at least it did to me and the other people that I know that listen to it. And it's not stuff that I think most people, including myself, necessarily feel in their 30s or 40s. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a different sort of thing. And so it's really kind of a nostalgic thing for me, but I also relate to it, like, in a weird sort of way, maybe more than I ever did at the same time.
Yeah, I get that.
So it's...
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed it. And what I liked the most about it, the guitars and the playing and the production was somehow very dense, but also very sparse at the same time. And I really liked that. It was like, I could tell there were a bunch of guitars layered, but they were all doing their own thing, and they were all very, like, a lot of them were really clean, you know, their tone. And so I thought that was cool. I also loved how long they took to start singing. I mean, it was like 2, 3, 4 minutes into a song before the vocals came in. And I was like, what the hell's going on? You know?
They really...
I thought that was great.
They really nailed the production and, like, the entire feel of, like, the atmospheric sort of... I keep using the word atmospheric, but I think it's the best way to describe this album.
Yeah.
And
I really enjoyed it. So,
I really like that. I definitely focused on the instrumentation quite a bit too, for sure.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, I think this is number 3.
All right, so my third choice is by a group. I don't know, a pair of guys, girls, some people. I don't know anything about them.
That was the greatest description ever.
Yeah, I don't know who they are, but yeah. So it's called The Double, and I first heard about this not that long ago, maybe a month ago. Joe Didarian, who, if you have the pleasure of knowing Joe, he's pretty much like If Iowa City were a person, he's phenomenal. He's involved in everything that's cool, and he's one of the best dudes around. But he posted about this, so I listened to it, and I was beside myself. And so when I shared with Dan my picks for this week, I did not give him a warning about this. The listeners, you, the listener, will have a leg up on me and Dan, and I feel like a little bit. So, spoiler alert: skip this section if you want to experience Dawn of the Double without any preconceived notions. But yeah, so what this is, it's a one-track record. The song is 40 minutes long. I know what you're thinking already, that this is some ambient noise. It grows, it crescendos, it falls back apart. It has big swelling post-rock elements. You're completely wrong. What this is a Bo Diddley beat on the drums. You know, your basic. I'm just gonna play it on the desk here. And then a rock and roll guitar, tons of reverb, a tube amp turned up way too high, breaking up, basically going da 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 da, playing rock and roll, and it lasts for 40 minutes. And it does sort of change at times, but it never really grows or moves or develops. This is a meditation on primitive rock and roll. This is letting yourself fall into the essence of rock and roll and living there for a while. And it sounds like that would be terrible, but somehow it's like truly transcendent. And I don't know why anyone would do this, except that they were playing it and they were like, let's not stop. And they just let the tape roll. I have no idea why you would think, let's play what sounds like the intro to basically the most cheesy rock and garage rock thing you've ever heard, but we just do that intro for 40 minutes. I was reassured about the state of rock and roll after hearing this, though. I really was. Like, it was cool. It's like the first time you hear Vicious by Lou Reed, you're just like, oh shit, that's rock and roll. I get it, you know? And so, yeah, I can't really suggest this more, and I can't really say that much more about it. Like, it is what it is. If it sounds interesting, check it out. If it sounds terrible, I guess don't check it out. But I had a really good time with its meditative, or if you're smart, meditative elements. And I really like things that you can fall into, and usually that means atmospheric and ambient. In this case, it means just pushing the pedal to the floor and going for 40 minutes. So, yeah, what do you think, Dan?
Well, before I get into what I thought of the music, I actually did just a little bit of research because I was so curious who these people were after listening to it. I was like, who are these people? And I asked the same question as you. Why would you do this? And it turns out that I guess that it is two guys, and I guess that they both have played with Ty Segall, ironically enough.
My God. Oh, that's weird.
Isn't that odd? They were like Ty Segall. I don't know if they were session musicians for him or if they like were part of a... Because they're on In the Red Records, which was Jay Retard's record label. And, well, before he signed to Matador. And Ty Segall and a bunch of like garage rock bands like have put stuff. I think Human Eye, that one band, they're on In the Red, I think. So a lot of the Detroit garage rock type stuff kind of comes out on that label, I think.
Okay.
I I could be completely wrong about that. As my knowledge of that entire scene is, uh, mediocre at best. But back to the music. This reminded me of two things. A group called the Psychic Paramount. And not because the Psychic Paramount are all those things that you mentioned with swelling and reverb, are all those things that I guess should be in like an instrumental sort of band that this is not, as you said, but it's the delivery. It's the like you said, it kind of starts with like an intro, and the intro just never really ends. But there is like some building like that kind of goes on a little bit, and
there are accents and
there's accents
and different things,
and that it reminds me of that. It also reminds me of another band that I'm really into called Oneida. Have you ever heard Oneida?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Specifically, the album Each One Teach One. The first track on that album is called Sheets of Easter. And it's like a 15-minute psych jam. And again, it doesn't sound like that because Oneida is all those things that the Psychic Paramount are. And they're not instrumental even. Matter of fact, basically what that is a loop. It's not actually a loop. I think that the Oneida record, they're actually playing that over and over again. And it just sounds exhausting and hilarious. Which this sounds exhausting and hilarious to me. But maybe it's not meant to be that. But yeah, no, I got lost in like a trance listening to it. And I always like it when when music does that, because it's definitely this sounds like the worst idea ever. But it was really cool. It was really interesting. It's not something that I would listen to all the time. I wouldn't be like driving down the road jamming this or anything.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Sorry to jump back in.
No, that's okay.
But I've listened to this maybe 3 or 4 times now, and every time it starts, I'm like, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" And then and then I'm into it, and then I'm like, "Well, you have to finish it now."
It's really
what it reminds me of is Chuck, who we've mentioned on here before.
Sure.
Negative acquaintance. No, he's not our friend. We used to
enemy of the people.
Yeah, he's terrible. And we used to listen to the song "You Do Right" by Can. Which is about a 20-minute jam or whatever. And it was like an endurance test. It would be like, he'd seriously be like, we'd be in the car and he'd be like, "Do you want to listen to You Do Right?" And he'd be like tempting me, like daring me. And I'd be like, "Hell yeah, let's do it, man." And then we just have to drive around for 20 minutes listening to this song. It kind of reminds me of that. Like, once I start this, it's like, "Okay, buddy, let's see if you can do this." And I kind of like that. There's like an inherent dare to this, It's like, can you make it? Is it even worth it? So that's like, I don't know if you felt that at all, but for me, there's a bit of endurance.
Well, there was definitely like I definitely felt that, like, I gotta hear this till the end, because what if something completely different happens?
Right.
This sounds like the type of project that I would start to put out this record and then purposely break up afterwards, and then reunite a year later to play our classic album in full.
Right.
Like that, I think it would be so awesome if these guys, well, I don't know if they broke up, and I don't want them to break up, if you know what I mean, but I'm just saying that, like, it would be funny as hell if they broke up and then they reunited to play Dawn of the Double in full. Like,
oh man,
that would just be.
I would. Oh my god, I would love to go to that show.
Me too. I would.
I'm serious.
It would be so. No, I'm serious too. It would be one of the most fascinating things ever to see that happen.
Let's try to get them to come here. If they still exist, and if people can ever be in the same room with each other.
To see a band like this on stage at the Muscatine Brew would be one of my dreams come true. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. Should we tell people how Mississippi Brew is spelled, just in case they want to go?
Yeah, Mississippi. Oh my gosh, I could totally like.
If you look up the Mississippi Brew, you're never gonna find it.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, man. Yeah, no. So once this virus gets knocked out, I got some plans.
Yeah.
No, yeah. We should seriously pursue that, Eric. We should try and get the double to play here for sure somewhere.
Okay.
It doesn't. I mean,
I'll
fuck.
put Joe Darian on it. No one can say no to Joe.
There you go. There you go. The double. Yeah. No, it was a very fascinating thing, man. It's great. I always like challenges, and it was definitely a challenge. I mean, but it was also just funny and ridiculous to me. Maybe it's not supposed to be, but you know, I always find.
I don't know. They don't give you a lot of clues.
No, they really don't. But like, I always find I have a sense of humor about a lot of music that I shouldn't find funny. You know, like I don't know. It's
like Elton John.
Oh yeah, I mean that kind of stuff.
That shit's hilarious.
I remember Elton John, man, really funny.
You ever heard Crocodile Rock? Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's like Dr. Demento.
Oh my gosh. Piano Man by Billy Joel, what a hoot.
Man.
But like Dr. Demento. He's playing like Elton John and Billy Joel and Joe Jackson. Okay, so that brings me to album number 3. And this is a record that I really, really like and have liked for a long time. It's from this group called Kicking Giant. The name of the record is Alien ID. I first heard of these guys from the Modest Mouse documentary about the Lonesome Crowded West, because one of the members, I don't remember if it was the bassist or drummer, said that they really liked Kicking Giant and that they might have even been like a influence on Modest Mouse. And really, I mean, this record, it's just kind of, it sounds like fuzzy sort of indie rock punk type stuff, but there's a lot of kind of weird twists and turns that it takes sometimes. It kind of has like that sort of, I don't want to say garagey, but the production on it is pretty rough when it's like rock, but not in a bad way. It's not like, I mean, I think it's kind of that sort of purposely sort of being not even noisy, just kind of rough around the edges, like when it rocks. But then there's also these sort of beautiful ambient pieces. I think the song, it's either Dreamland Burns or Inside Out Flower. I don't remember which one it is. That's either tracks 3 or 4. And I could be totally wrong. I'm just looking at the track list right now. Mm-hmm. I should know it better because I've listened to this album tons. But one of them, it's an instrumental ambient sort of droney track, like sort of interlude. And it was actually used in the movie Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Oh, cool.
And so I kind of heard about it there. But I found this in a used bin. I think at Record Collector, when they were having like it's this record shop in Iowa City, they were having one of their discount sales. And this wasn't that terrible long ago, 5 years ago maybe. And I think they had a bunch of CDs for $1, and this was one of them. And I just remembered the name Kicking Giant, and it's on K Records, which puts out a lot of cool music, like, Beck put out a record called One Foot in the Grave on that record label. This really cool group called Enemy Mine put out their 2 records on it. And of course, Beat Happening, the label's owned by Calvin Johnson. So I bought it and listened to it, and yeah, it's fantastic. There's a pretty hilarious track on here called "The Town Idiot." It's a duo group. The drummer is Rachel Carnes, and the guitarist and singer, well, they both sing. I'm gonna butcher this name, but it's Taiwan Yu, I think. Yeah, it's just I really like it, and it feels like they're making a statement. Sometimes, like, like I don't know, like what about or anything, but it definitely has some like poetic vocals, or excuse me, poetic lyrics. The track "She's Real" I really like a lot. There's a couple of songs on here that I think could have been radio hits. Honestly, like, I mean, I just think the songs are really good, and I really enjoy it. And it's punky, it's jangly, and it's a lot of fun to listen to. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Shout out to Record Collector.
Absolutely.
Like
Iowa
4
City.
or 5 times an episode.
Yeah, so, we always mention it. I think
they
that's
not its sponsor. But,
yeah. But
like I said, go into Record Collector. Say I was listening to Accelerativ Thrust, and they kept saying you guys are great, and they'll say, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, please stop bringing up this dumbass podcast.
Well, they keep saying that you're going to pay them money.
Yeah, right. They'll probably be like, please stop mentioning us.
Yeah.
We don't want to be associated with you.
Exactly. I don't know what you guys do, but yeah, leave us alone.
No, Record Collector is great. So yeah, Kicking Giant. I have never heard of this, and I never heard it, obviously. I think that it's pretty forward-thinking for 1994. It doesn't sound like anything I remember listening to. But then again, I've missed so much music, as we all have. I think it's hard to try to play catch up,
right?
With music, and so yeah, I was coming at this, I guess, from a different place. I don't know. I had a hard time finding the sort of aesthetic thread that ran through the whole thing, like you said, there are moments where it's like, whoa, this is just a pop band. It's almost like Weezer,
right,
at times. And then there's moments where it's like slightly more experimental, but still accessible, kind of like Goo era Sonic Youth or something.
Yes.
And then there are parts that are just straight up murky, experimental, dark soundscapes almost. And so it kind of is like a pendulum between those 3 elements. And as soon as you think you understand what they're trying to accomplish, it goes into something else and changes. And I think that is awesome. But like I said, I had a hard time kind of latching on to any sort of cohesive thread through the whole thing. But I loved a lot of parts of it. And that, I think that's all I'll be able to take away from it, was I like this part and this part and this part and this part, And then the other parts, maybe not as much. But there's such extreme differences that for me personally, it was kind of like, well, I have to pick this apart and pick out the parts that I like. And so overall, I really liked it. Like I said, I think it's very different and forward thinking and experimental. And I liked the majority of it. So for me personally, I just kind of wish it felt like I was missing something, I was missing what the soul of the group was, to an extent, if that makes any sense. But that's me, like someone else could hear this and be like, Eric, you're really dumb. It's like so obvious that this is the main goal of this. But I wasn't able to find it, but I did really like it, and I think if I listen to it a few more times, I'll find that missing element that I wasn't able to find the one time I did listen to it. So I also think if I would have heard this in 1994, it probably would have blown my mind and been one of my favorite records. So, there's that element too. It's like time can really different experience. And with that being said, it could even be the day I listen to it. Like, that's the problem with opinions. Like they get filtered through each individual's stupid human brain, and whatever is happening right then changes it. It's, and so I think I need to revisit this one. Like I said, I did enjoy it, but I think I was missing something, so I'm going to give it a few more chances. So,
yeah, it's definitely a hard record to kind of. It's like it's not like you said. It's not very experimental, but it is kind of hard to narrow down exactly what it is that they're doing as a band. And that's one of the things that I like about it, is that it's kind of. Mm-hmm. It's like controlled chaos. It's like you said, mm-hmm. It sounds like pop music most of the time or half the time, and then it just kind of like turns into something completely different than that other times. And I kind of like how it's sort of like this. It almost feels like getting on like a airplane with a bunch of turbulence, and it's kind of, oh, is it gonna crash? No, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how, like, the record is to me. Like, I don't know. I latched onto it right away. I like everything about it. It's for me, it's a really fun listen, and I'm glad you listened to it, and I think I do think that. Hold on a second. All right, got a phone call there. I'm not editing that out, so you guys are just gonna have to. You guys are gonna have to deal with that ring that just happened.
It was actually me, and I know that you screened my call.
There you go.
I'm pretty hurt.
But actually, sorry about that, guys. I just got a call on my cell phone, as you heard, and I looked at it again and realized that it might kind of be important. So anyway, we're back, and I don't remember where we left off. Do you remember, Eric?
Kicking Giant.
Okay, so we basically just
finishing up.
We were kind of wrapping that up. Okay, so let's move on to reviewing that album by Cory Peak. So, Cory Peak, as you guys heard at the beginning of the episode, good friend of ours. I've known him for years, and he is one of the most creative people that I know around this area. And he's always putting out these, in addition to rocking out in his band Closet Witch, he also puts out from time to time these weird solo albums. Some of them are just kind of almost like collages of sound. Some of them actually have songs like, acoustic songs. Some of them are rock. Some of them are like almost like, I don't know, dance music kind of. But lately it seems like he's been putting out these sort of hip-hop instrumental albums where he does beats. And he does a lot of sampling and things like that. This is like the second one he put out in 2020. Came out like in October, I think. October or November. He put out another one over the summer. And I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of that album because it's kind of a weird word. But I think it's some kind of mushroom. I know that Cory's been kind of into like over the summer, I've been seeing on his social media that he's been kind of into taking hikes with his girlfriend Molly, who is the singer of Closet Witch, and they seem to go mushroom hunting a lot, or maybe they don't go mushroom hunting, but they find mushrooms, and then they're kind of they like to share that experience. So that must be what that album is based on. Kind of. Well, maybe it's not based on that, but the inspiration for the title anyway. Cory, if I'm getting any of this wrong, just feel free to let me know, but that's just how I maybe see it.
Yeah. Maybe he'll be on this podcast again someday.
Yes, that's a whole other thing. Cory was actually going to be on this podcast, and that ended up being kind of a disaster on my part because I attempted to do things, and it just ended badly. That happens a lot. That happens a lot when I do things.
The first step to failure is trying.
I've never heard that one. That's great. That is going to be the name of the episode. The first step to failure is trying. That is it right there.
Oh man, I live by it.
I have been searching for an interesting title, because last week's title was very, just what it was. It was. Spectral Snake album. Not that that's bad, but I couldn't think of anything else. The first step to failure is trying. That's the name of this episode.
Sure.
What do you think, Eric? Do you like that? Do you approve?
Yeah. For sure.
All right.
I have it tattooed on my throat. So, I mean,
like, dude, can you get tattoos on your throat? Like, hey, I just need you to stick it down there. There's like blood coming up.
I guess my front neck.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say,
the inside of my throat.
I'd like a tattoo on my lung. Hey, you guys have surgeons here that can tattoo my spleen, right? Like, oh my gosh, that is fantastic. Well, I'm done. I mean, I don't need to talk about Cory's album or anything now. We're talking about tattooing organs. Just kidding. But anyway. So yeah, Trapped Soul by Cory Peak. This was his latest solo album. Do you want to go first with your assessment review, or do you want me to go first? Well, I guess
sure.
No. Well, yeah, you go first because I ended the last. You know what I mean? Like I went last with Kicking Giant.
All right. Yeah. I thought it was amazing. I really, really loved it. Like, I hope that Cory keeps doing things like this. It's like super hip hop oriented, but at the same time, it's not like just based in a kind of boom bap 808 drums kind of thing. Like these are nice cuts. Like it's very soulful, funky. And I hate the word funky, but I literally mean it's funk-ish, Like it feels like a lot of 70s soul samples. And then beyond that, they're cut up in really, really cool ways, ways you wouldn't expect. And then also there's a really deep sense of humor to this whole thing. And I'm not saying it's goofy. It's not novel. It's like legit funny. It's like how other cut-up artists create humor. Like if you listen to Negative Land, they can take a set of samples and make you laugh. Like they're telling a joke through the way samples are assembled. And I don't think people appreciate that on the level they really should. Because to just take a collection of sounds and words from other places and have a setup and a punchline and have the comedic timing built into how you assemble those things is genius. And it had to have taken Cory a really long time to assemble all these samples and cuts. that mention the name Cory. Like, I don't know if he does that on other collections, but this one, it was very funny. Like, it was some of the, my favorite part easily is there's like must be a talk show or something. It sounds English, and a kid's talking about, or they're talking to this kid about a big ass party he threw and like got in trouble. And I'm seriously about to laugh just talking about it. But the way this is cut together is hilarious and so well done. I would love to hear more things just like this from Cory. I would listen to it all for forever. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go the opposite route. What is this garbage, Cory? I mean, come on. You know, like, there's nothing inspiring here. This is all just a bunch of beats. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like rap music. In fact, I don't like music, period. I don't even know why I'm doing this
You
podcast.
actually sounded like me for real.
No, but for real, yeah, no, this is really well done. I've, of course, as Cory's friend, I've been following his creative ventures for years now, and yeah, it totally like makes sense to me that Cory, knowing him as the person that he is, would make this type of instrumental beat album. That sense of humor that you're talking about, totally, just like from conversations that I've had with him and things like that, and just knowing his sense of humor and what he's into, because I know that he's an MF Doom fan, and I know that he's a fan of a lot of interesting hip hop. He puts out a lot of it on his label, and he's into like weird, funny type stuff, you know, when it comes to like sample based music. And this has all those things. Like you said, it's really funky. It's really interesting, a really enjoyable experience. I also like the fact that he doesn't it's almost kind of like a don't blink or you'll mess it approach, kind of, where it's like the songs are very quick, or the tracks are really quick. It's almost like plays like a punk record in that sense, you know, or even like a grind record. I like the fact that some of it just sounds like inspirational little snippets, you know what I mean? And then, like you said, it was very, very clever the way he added in all those samples of like talking about Cory. And that, I think, is actually a direct influence, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, of Doom and the way that Doom produces, because Doom does the same thing in a much different way. He does that sometimes on some of his production, where he'll take quotes like, you know, but Doom is really dangerous, you know what I mean? Like somebody's talking about Doom from the Fantastic Four cartoon or something, you know? And yes, I do remember that, and maybe that wasn't, you know, like I said, maybe that wasn't like a direct, but I think that a lot of like people who make sample-based music kind of do that in different ways. They do it in sort of their own way. And yeah, the way he chops up those samples, very, very good. I really enjoyed the track Thank You. That was one of my favorites. I just remember that one stuck to me. Just the beat, you know. I mean, yeah. But the entire thing was just fantastic. Trapped Soul. I also think that the name of the album really fit as a whole.
Yeah. And we should mention the cover art, too, done by Joe Huerman.
Yes, the cover art is amazing.
Nightmare Imagery. So.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
It looks like it doesn't look like it's going to be like a sample-based hip-hop beat. Like,
no.
It looks more like, it looks like maybe a grindcore album or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I think that's totally awesome, too. Um,
Mhm.
well done, Cory.
Yeah.
You've won my heart and the hearts of two podcast hosts. And what you decide to do with that information is really up to you. But do keep in mind, and this is for the listeners also, the first step to failure is trying.
Yeah. I think we said Cory enough too that if he wanted to make a new record, he could sample up a lot.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
you could do that, Cory.
maybe
if
we
you
could
wanted
have
to.
maybe we could have Cory go into the record collector and talk them into paying us. Cory's a
Yeah.
good friend.
Sure. Yeah.
And if
Yeah, maybe he could make a song using
yeah,
samples of us saying Cory and record collector,
there you go.
and then play it for them, and then they would ask him to leave. I think it would work.
And if it doesn't work, we can use another one of our friends the next week. We could just keep using our friends to like try and get that sponsorship from the record collector. Just keep burning bridges every week.
Oh, yeah. Well, I already can't go in there. I'm already banned. So.
This is the real cancel culture over here at Accelerativ Thrust, people.
Yeah.
We're incriminating ourselves pretty hardcore on this episode. So that was a good episode, don't you think, Eric?
Yeah. Pretty good.
All right, good. Yeah, anything else exciting happened this week before we let the listeners off the hook?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
That was very quick.
I literally can't even remember what happened in my life before we started recording tonight.
Gotcha. It is pretty
it's a
difficult.
wash.
I am going to say that I've gotten back into reading comics again.
Oh, nice.
Which is something that I haven't really done in a long time. For some reason, I don't know why, but have you ever read a book? It's a graphic novel called Black Hole by this cartoonist named Charles Burns.
Yeah, is it the X'd Out guy?
I'm
right?
not sure. I think maybe. That sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, I think I have those. I haven't read them though, actually.
Wait, X'd Out, is it like a is that, do you know who it's published
Yeah, Charles Burns. Yeah.
Okay. That's who it is?
I haven't read Black Hole, but X'd Out is like a series, a trilogy. But I don't think Black Hole is part of it. I'm totally talking out my ass right now.
Okay.
Somebody out there is like, you dumb shit.
Yeah.
Don't talk about things you don't know about. But actually, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think X'd Out is part of a trilogy, whereas Black Hole is its own graphic novel. So
Right,
no,
yeah.
I have not.
Okay. If you're into comics, I don't know how into comics you are, Eric, but
No, I've read some graphic novels and I like those. But
Okay.
as far as,
then if you're into graphic novels, and even if you're not into comics really, like this is one of those comics, I think, one of those graphic novels that could appeal to even non-comic book / graphic novel fans, It's really, really good. And so I've been reading that this week. And I also went down into the basement where I've been keeping some of my stuff and got some of my old like mini comics and zines and stuff, and even found an old issue of Zines from the Man from
nice.
one Jason Salick.
Oh, wait, I don't think we're supposed to tell anyone.
Oh, are you serious?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't.
I'm just lying.
Okay, well, no.
I think it's fun to lie. I don't
Okay,
know.
all right. Well, just, dude, you got me there, man. You got me there. Everyone's going to hear you getting me there. Oh, man. All right, well, anyway. On that note, we will see you. We will not see you, but hear from you next week, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Or hey, you want to do like this goodbye, sort of thing?
Who's gonna? So one of us sings one note.
Yeah, one of us
Next
starts
one
it off,
sings
and
another
then
one.
the other one, and then there's supposed to be a third person, but I'm sure one of us could get a second voice somehow. So
goodbye.
goodbye.
Okay. Perfect.